Chairman, Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed the minutes and find everything to be in order, so my motion is to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Johnson, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next is the investment report, and Mr. Beatty had a commitment, so Lisa is going to take care of that as soon as she gets up here.
Yeah, I can probably go ahead and take care of it since I pretty much put it all together. We had a LGIP rate of 0.06, so it's continuing to increase a little bit. I think last month was 0.03. Our bank rate is still 0.15 according to our contract. And we did have a one CD for $5 million that we bid during the month, and we got a rate of 0.16, which is more than the 0.06 that we're getting in LGIP, so they went ahead and took that for 1 year.
Okay, you've heard the report. Any questions for either Lisa or Mark on the report? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Piercy, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up is the fund condition report. Ms. Lisa.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with the development tax and the adequate school facilities tax. In the month of November, we received $72,750 from the development tax. Brings our total for the year to $593,250. In the adequate facilities tax, we received $227,525. Brings our total to $1,202,628. That compares to last year to $2,334,000 in development tax for the same time period. Moving on to cash, at the end of November, we had $371,424,000, with $317,470,000 being operating funds and $53,954,000 being borrowed funds. There's no questions on that. We'll go to kind of a check-in on our revenue. Interestingly, that we already talked about there's about a 22% less in the development tax and adequate facility compared to last year. So behind on the refund from the medical claims, from the boarding of prisoners, that's what I meant. Now, our sales tax and hotel motel tax both are up quite a bit. Compared to the prior year, we've got 4 months reporting. We're at 21% increase for the countywide sales tax. That's all municipalities, all governments. And hotel motel tax with 3 months reporting is up 38.7%. At the end of November, the trustee had collected 12.3% of the tax roll.
Okay, that concludes your report.
There's no questions. That's all of my report, sir.
Any questions for our finance director on the report? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Johnson, thank you. And a second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up is a risk management financial report. Sir.
For the month of November, in the 264 fund, you'll see that the revenue, $7,612,260. Expenditures, $7,907,042, for a difference on the negative, $294,782. For the year total, on the calendar year, would be $77,283,286 in revenue. Expenditures, $80,294,433. Revenue less expenditures, a negative $3,011,147. And then for the fiscal year, total is $28,019,809. Expenditures, $36,547,937. For revenue less expenditures, a negative $8,528,129. For the 266 fund, workers' comp for November 21st, $11,219.73. OJI is $37,408.26, and your total, $48,627.99. And for the total for the fiscal year, it will be workers' comp, $22,876.68. OJI, $225,275.26, for a total of $248,151.94. The county attorney expenditures for the month of November, $32,343.80. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are there any questions for the director?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the report. There's Andy's second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. I had told Ed that he's got another item that he's going to bring before us, and I told him I thought it was on our iPad, and I'm not seeing it now. We're talking about where he has some people that are leaving, and we're talking about maybe doing some changes, but I'll let him explain that. If you would, go ahead with that, Ed.
Okay. So in my office, Dan Good, the safety coordinator, is retiring. Actually, it's next Friday. I also have a senior benefit analyst that is transferring to another department. And with that, that opens up two positions in the office. And what I am proposing before I fill those positions is to kind of reorganize and to make sure that the jobs that we have fits their job descriptions a little bit better for what they will be asked to do. So my proposal is to move a senior benefit analyst from a 25 to a 30 to a benefits coordinator. Then to take a benefit specialist and move that to a senior benefit specialist. And that's a 23 to a 26 grade. And then to take a benefit specialist, that's a 23, and move that position to a admin support 2, which would be going from a 23 position grade down to a pay grade down to a 15. When you add all of that up, it's close, but there's a little bit of a savings there instead of, it doesn't affect my budget. Now, why I bring this before you now is because if I don't do it now and I fill the positions that I have, it's going to be very difficult to do it at any other time during budget time, especially when you take a benefit specialist at a 23 and bring it down to an admin at a 15 and ask them to take a, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 cut. So I just look at it that because of the vacancies and to be able to keep it within budget, now's the time to bring it before you.
Basically, these are administrative changes that's going to maintain the efficiency of the department without any delay or anything with the retirement of the
Yes,
fellow.
sir.
And no cost for, in the budget, there's no change in the
No
budget.
increase. There'll be a cost, it just won't be
Right.
an increase.
Well, right, but I mean.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And it'll try to get everybody closer to what their job description is.
Motion to approve his request.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Johnson. And a second. Thank you, Commissioner Allen. One thing I'll point out too is this should have a decrease in its cost for next budget year
Yes, sir.
changes. So any further discussion or questions for Mr. Elam?
I just need a copy of that, if you can email that to me, Ed, so I'll have that for the
Okay.
minutes.
I will.
Okay, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next up is a general fund budget transfer for juvenile detention. I believe Ms. Duke's here.
Good evening. This is all money within our budget. It is $3,100 from other supplies and materials into a maintenance agreement line item. It is to take care of a slight increase in our video and security system. And if you have any questions, I can happily answer them.
Chairman, did you all see this in public safety?
Well, they did. We probably have to call on the chairman since I was out sick and I didn't make that meeting. We've got a couple of votes that'll be coming up with public safety items. But if you'd like to hear from Mr. Reed, I'm sure he'd be happy to tell us.
I understand that it went through public safety and it was approved, I believe, unanimously. And with that in mind, I would make a motion to approve the amendment as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions for Ms. Duke? Hear none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a amendment to an agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated for our GIS, and I assume that's our overflight. And call on Mr. Cody York. Looks like a guy that wants to get in our back pocket, just between you and I.
No. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. So I will start off with, we are not asking for any more money. This money's already been budgeted. We purchased SERI. This is our GSI software that allows for all of the GSI function, really. It's kind of the thing that allows the location data to be transferred. We use it for dispatch, we use it for planning, we use it for basically everything that uses location data. This is the thing that allows that to happen. So we are purchasing it off of state contract. Again, we already have the money in our budget. This is just an extension of our agreement to make it for another 3 years.
The flyover is part of this cost, or is it not? Or
No, this is just
transfer
the
data?
software, all the software that the entire package that ties everything together.
questions for Mr. York on this software?
This money's in the budget already, correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
A motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion or questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson? Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you, Chairman, Committee.
All righty. Next up is item number 7, General Fund Budget Amendment for Paws. Mr. Gregory's here, I believe. Welcome, Michael.
We have 2 budget amendments for your consideration tonight. The first budget amendment is asking to move money that was reserved from grants last year and also to recognize money from the animal-friendly state grant and putting those in the appropriate line items.
You've heard the request. He's asking to just move money around in already budgeted funds.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further questions for Mr. Gregory? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries, and you've got another item.
Yes, sir. The other item that I'm bringing to you for consideration, as many departments have expressed, we're having several difficulties filling positions within our department, especially with our part-time folks. And just the amount of turnover that we've had, I'm not getting the applicants, and then folks that we have had working for us for several years are continuing to leave. We're asking to take money that we will be saving through our part-time line item and money that we have saved through vacancies in our full-time line items and move that over so that we could take 3 part-time positions and make those full-time to try to get additional applicants and folks in positions to help fill some of these things. There's money within our budget to cover the salaries. The part that we're going to have an issue with is going to be the health insurance, depending on what those folks choose for their 2022 health insurance. And Mark has indicated we could work on that when we do the master amendment towards the end of the fiscal year to make up for that, not knowing what folks are going to be choosing. We just need some help. We're barely at times keeping the desk staffed and the place open, and we just need some relief.
Okay, so you've heard his request to increase part-time positions to 3 full-time. Michael, and maybe I missed this, will there be any other part-time if you're granted the ability to make these full-time?
Yes, sir. This will keep 1 part-time vet assistant, 1 part-time in-house person at a desk that's currently filled, and it keeps us with, I believe, 5 additional part-time kennel attendants. And out of those kennel attendants, only 3 of my 6 kennel attendant positions that we have that are part-time now are actually filled, and it's been that way for most of this fiscal year.
So you've actually got about 10 positions
I
that are
have 10
part-time.
part-time positions, yes, sir.
How many total full-time do you have?
Full-time, I believe we're at 27 right now. So we have 37 total employees, and just since January 1, we've had 27 of those positions turn over out of that total 37, and then had many vacancies as well. So we've not been running at a full staff for quite some time.
Well, I've got several questions about that. I apologize to the committee. As I said, I wasn't at our last public safety meeting where this came up. But quick question for the mayor. Have you looked at this, and what's your recommendation?
I have, Mr. Chairman. I talked to Michael, and I totally concur with us moving forward with this.
Any questions from the committee? Commissioner
I'm just going
Gooch?
to make a motion to approve the request.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Commissioner Allen, any further discussion?
Do you have volunteers? Do y'all use volunteers?
Yes, sir. We have volunteers that come in and do a lot of our enrichment and our dog walking, those type things. We don't use staff to do those things.
About how many volunteers do you have?
Active, probably 20 to 25.
Okay.
Thinking about joining up?
When I retire, yeah.
There you go. Any other questions?
4 years, by the way.
4 years. I'm going to hold you to that.
Hearing
As
no
far as
further
coming in, not the 4 years.
Hearing no further discussion, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Okay, next is the public safety. Make sure I'm on the right number here.
Number 9.
Number 9, use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds to construct public safety buildings. Item 9. Mayor? Okay.
Yeah, between Lisa and myself, and I requested Mr. Klein to be here from Klein Sweeney, our architect. The PBA had been previously, or this commission had previously authorized a limit that has not met the level of what we first allocated because of supply chain issues, trying to get steel. We've gone in and looked because we do have some final numbers on what these are going to cost. So if I could ask to suspend the rules to allow Mr. Klein to come up, he can better articulate what it's going to cost us on the first building, because the second, third, and fourth building become cheaper. And we can go through the cost of FF&E, the locution that the fire department and EMS were requesting. We can go over all those numbers, and then if approved, we'll send it back to PBA and authorize them to move forward with letting the bids, because we're now at that point. Ms. Snowden, we had originally authorized $4 million.
Right. You want to talk about the money and then whether or not we're going to,
Lisa and I
there.
looked at this, and she's got this laid out pretty well. If y'all don't mind, let's let her run through
Lisa,
it.
and then
And
any
then if we
questions
need to,
maybe.
let's suspend the rules for any other questions from Mr. Klein.
Okay, so if you can go to that first sheet, it's laid out, those that, y'all that are on Education Committee are used to seeing this layout. So with the, I'm just kind of bringing you up to date, with the buildings, if you remember, we allocated money out of the governor's money from 20 to help fund the architect and design. So that's that first block, to just let you remember that's where part of the money for architect and engineering for most of the building. Now Rockvale, there is additional, there was a $10,000 more for a redesign that we are adding into the architect fees for the Rockvale, and then each one of these is an additional $15,000 for review, special inspection. Okay, so using Mr. Klein's numbers for Rockvale with those two numbers, and then adding, that I come up with $7,137,000 that is needed. That this number doesn't exactly match. Okay, so for Kittrell, I see $7,152,000. Las Casas, $7,317,000, and Walter Hill, $7,317,000. What I tried to show you at the top, there's $28,201,000 available. So distributing that money to these projects, the blocks in purple, there's not enough funding. But my thought, out of everything that we need $724,000 to fully fund everything. But in my thinking is that we're not going to be doing FF&E until, I don't know how long it's going to take to build these buildings, but I don't think we're going to need them until
months.
the end, and we'll have the next batch of money by that time. So that is how I would recommend. Now, to do this, go on down to the second page. We paid the premium pay, and this is the results. I need to bring back about $430,000 of monies that we budgeted that we did not spend out of premium pay. And also, the first two items on the top, if you remember, we put $100,000 for the down payment of the State Farm. We're not going to do that, so I'm going to undo that amendment. And then $50,000, we kind of just threw that out there just in case we had to pay some expenses before all this kind of got started. So if that is what we need to do this anyway, this amendment, to clean up and make sure we have all the funds available to budget.
So we started out with 32 million, and then the premium pay, you subtract a little over 4 million from that, from the 32 for the premium pay as directed by the commission. And I believe, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at Pettis, public safety authorized up to 28 million to take care of these four. And there was some discussion about, okay, what about the other two, being Christiana and Almaville? And that was, I think the full intent is, from the commission, is next June, when we get the second tranche of money, is to make sure, because we had some difficulty on soils at Almaville. And the architect was running into some issues there, so that would give us time to try to work that out. So if we knock those two off, and then we're up to 7 because spike increases on materials, then that gives us, we fall in line with that 28 million request. I'm sorry.
Close to that. 924.
28 million 950.
But we should have the others when it comes in.
So basically, all this funding will come from the Gov 20. We'll try to pull that down.
From the first tranche of the American Rescue.
American Rescue, not the Gov 20.
Oh, okay.
And we still feel like, I believe if we could spin the rules to let Mr. Klein come up, because this coming week, we've got, and that's on here, is to use 2 different contractors, and he can explain that. And if American Constructors comes in cheaper on their numbers, they haven't had time to put that together, but they may come in cheaper than what Rock City is brought in. If you'd like to allow him to.
Yeah, that's actually on our next.
Kind of combine the two together if you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules for Mr. Klein to speak. Got a motion. Do I hear a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please come up. Welcome.
I'm going to just kind of run down first, broad picture where we are. Rock Bell's been priced fully. The contractors probably, that's Rock City, they probably priced it. They've got 4 bids on a lot of the items, so we feel like we have good coverage. So that number, that really, the number I look at is the total cost of construction, which includes the IT and the FF&E, is 7.162. And of that, what you need to understand is we have a 3% contingency for the building. That's about $140,000. Plus we have an 18% contingency for IT, which is somewhere around $80,000. So that number has a built-in $230,000 fluff in case we run into issues, find something under the ground we couldn't think of, you know, all kinds of stuff that comes with the love of construction. But what you'll see in Building 2 for Ketchel, the IT number will go from, what was it? Hold on here. From $675,000, I think it drops immediately $200,000 the second, third, and fourth building. Because the first hunk of money they got to pay for locution, they have to pay for that front-end system cost. So it's higher for the first building. So if you actually took, you know, that savings of $200,000 times 3 of the buildings, that's a $600,000 reduction. I think we're going to come under are right at the $28 million number. Now, before we go under contract with Rock City to build Rockville, American Construction is pricing this as well. So we're kind of doing a verification process. They're supposed to have the number for Kettrell in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So when we get that number, then we're going to verify it against Rock City's number. If there's a big discrepancy, we're going to put both contractors in the same room because it's open book since it's CM at risk. If we see that our steel contractor, Barnett, is $60,000 less or more than their steel contractor, we're going to ask the two to talk, and they're going to share and help us see cost savings all the way down. So before we actually commit funds to a contractor and sign, we're going to go through that process. Does that make sense? Okay.
And my numbers on 2, 3, and 4, I didn't reflect the reduction.
A reduction.
I don't have that in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we don't have a number for 2, 3, and 4 yet.
No, I
Yep.
meant on that
on
location.
location.
Oh, yes, on location.
So I could reduce that.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and maybe in here, he would know the number by heart, the IT gentleman,
Wilkie.
Wilkie. Does that make sense? And you're right, the FF&E, you wouldn't have to commit, it's like 67,000 until that happened, but I think there's a good chance we're going to get under the 28. You know, hopefully American comes in less, hopefully don't, but right now, construction there's a lot of building going on, and, you know, I don't think it's going to come down anytime soon. Right now, if you're in the school world, schools are coming in right now about $50 more a square foot than they used to. Last elementary school bid for $300 a square foot 2 weeks ago in Metro. So right now, it's freaking all my clients out that do K through 12. They're all very worried about it, but that's just kind of what we're dealing with. The $10,000 that Lisa talked about for the truss redesign, to get the bar joists that were designed for this building, it's a 10-month lead time. We need to be dried in 3 months by the time we start turn shovel. So we're basically taking a regular steel beam and we're redesigning it to where they're going to build it into that joist. We should see a little bit of cost savings. Right now, actually, the number in there has some contingency for that. So we're still ironing some stuff out, but here within a couple weeks, we'll have everything ironed out. We'll see American's number. We'll be able to compare the two contractors. I don't think you can get as good of a verification process than that because you're seeing all the bids and, you know, who all's bid everything, and it's pretty open book.
Do you think it's reasonable what Lisa was suggesting, that the money we have available, if we held off paying for the furniture, fixtures, in 6 months, we get this next tranche of money? Do you think that's going to be a problem?
No, you're 10 to 11 months once you're turning shovel to get that building opened up. And typically you want to get that furniture like that 9th month, 8th month. You know, I've been waiting a month for furniture for my office. So right now furniture's taking a while to get in.
So we got probably another 3 months after the money's available before we'd be looking at purchasing those fixtures and furniture. Commissioner Allen.
Bart, you may have already answered this question. I apologize if you did. So on the Las Casas and the Walter Hill buildings, the architects and engineering fee is like $179,000. So typically when we repeat ourselves, the costs go down.
Yep.
So what is it exactly that we're paying for those two numbers to be so high?
You're paying 50% of the previous fee. So the previous fee, we use a state fee contract, state fee schedule, which I believe your schools do, you know, it's 4 to 5%. So the second one's, it's 50%. Since the architects have pretty much already done the building, the civil engineer has to site adapt the building. So you're already getting the 50% reduction.
Any other discussion? Mayor, you have any further comments you'd like to make?
No, sir, I think we've about exhausted this. We just can't keep the costs from escalating, you know.
Yeah, we did
so-
find a $100,000 savings. It's not in this yesterday, to go to a diesel generator on Rockville. We're going to continue to do that. So CM at risk process, it's a buyout process. So you really don't see your savings until the end of the project. So we're going to constantly say, as shop drawings come in, submittals come in, is there another way to do it? Is there a different product? Contractor go, price it. For instance, we just did a $15 million parking garage for Metro Nashville. At the end of the project, the city got back $400,000. Now the contractor put in at the front $600,000 for contingencies or whatnot, but that's how that process goes. So we'll just, even through construction, we'll be continually trying to whittle down as they buy out the job.
Lisa, quick question for you as far as if someone wants to approve this, how do we need to put that verbiage? Do we need that 28 million number, or what do we need to do?
Can the motion from public safety up to 28 million? You feel comfortable with that?
Well, I feel comfortable, yes, 28 million. I look at this, I thought, oh, we can drop to right there and say, you approve it up to 2 million, funding up to 28,201,294.
What's that figure one more time? 28 million?
It's what is available right now. It's $28,201,294. $28,201,294.
290 what dollars? 94.
It's the number in the red or the pink.
Or it says available funding.
On page
And then
one.
let me redistribute. It could,
And that's assuming that the funding will come from the sources that you've shown us here.
right.
Is there any further discussion? Anybody from the committee have any more questions on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Stevens, go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know in the past we had talked about maybe taking the tornado shelter part out of this design. Is that still in the design?
It is.
What is the cost, just what would you estimate the cost of reworking the plans to take that out versus what we would save on the construction if we didn't include that in there?
We figured roughly 250,000 maybe to take it out, but the issue is everything is designed around the tornado shelter. So what you're really looking at is you're probably looking at 2 to 3 months of redesign services and all the AEs and the engineers, because we're all attaching to this concrete box. So think about it, we drew all this stuff that's this thick, it'll put you back in, you maybe 3 months later, you may actually end up seeing an increase in cost because you've gone another 3 months. The big issue we're seeing right now, first of the year, steel increases are gonna go up. We know that, concrete prices are gonna go up. So just think about that. Sometimes you think, you go, well, let's go do this, let's see if we can get it down. And we could probably see a $250,000 savings, but then what is the price gonna cost 2 to 3 months from now once you rebid it? You're gonna have the AE redesign fees, and let's say it's $30,000, $40,000 at the end of it to do that. What is that? And then what's the escalation cost gonna be? Right now, we could have said, I guess, a couple months ago or 6 months ago, we've been using 13% as an inflation cost per year. In the last 6 months, we've seen around a 20% inflation cost. I mean, I would just, it's like throwing darts. It really is on what a block costs, what a brick costs. It's ridiculous,
And I had one more question. What happens if the total bid for all of this comes back at like 30 million? Which project are we going to cut, or what's the plan then?
Well, you are going into GMP, so on the first two, we will know real soon what that number is. If we have an issue with the other two and it comes in, we'll have to value engineer again, which we've done. We took some money out. I'd like to tell you I knew what it's going to be, but it's going to be a moving target. If that happens, we'll have to see what we can do then. Exactly, is really what it is. It could be as simple as, well, we can't provide the extra parking like we have an extra 20-something spaces for the residents around there to come to the tornado shelter. We may have to take that out. You may have to look at stuff like, instead of a concrete driveway that can take the fire trucks, maybe we do something different. You just look at everything, like squeezing blood out of the turnip.
Mr. Johnson?
The bottom line is 28,000,
201.
28,200,000 something. And you're saying that it could possibly come in less than that?
Good, because right now, if you just took the number that we have from Rock City, which is 7,162, we know that that number's coming down $200,000 just off the locution alone. If we do a very good job, and we shouldn't spend, so if you have a good set of contract documents and your architects and your engineers and your contractors have done your job, we shouldn't spend 3% of that contingency that we have set aside. You can typically expect about 1.5%. So if you multiply that times 4 projects, it's 150,000 times 4, that's what, 2.8, that's like almost 600,000. And then if you take the 18% contingency on the electrical, on the IT, which is another 80,000 multiplied times 4, if we spend all that money, then you should be looking at your architect and say, why are we spending all this contingency we set aside? If we come and say, well, we found a native burial ground underneath the building, then your architect probably didn't know about it. If we're saying, oh, well, we left this out and this out and this out. Does that make sense? You know, we shouldn't get into that. We typically see about 1 to 2% of that contingency is what is spent.
Also, in response to Commissioner Stevens, I believe it'd be penny wise and pound foolish to start cutting like the tornado shelter and everything, you know. I think that we'd be, pardon the pun, but shooting ourselves in the foot. So I think this came out of property management with the full approval. Am I correct, Trey? Mr. Dodd? Either one of y'all want to make the motion, or you want me to make it?
But before we do that,
Go ahead.
there is a salary change on page 2 of that, which cleans up all of the budget versus actual that we have related to the premium pay, and the $100,000 and $150,000 that we had put in. We put the $100,000 in for a down payment on the State Farm building, which we're not going to use, and $50,000 was budgeted earlier to potentially have some pre-construction cost paid for. But on that budget amendment, we would need to include that budget amendment in your motion so that we can get to that amount of funding level budgeted.
Okay, well, how would the motion read then, Mark? Go ahead.
You would approve the 28,201,294 in addition to approving the budget amendment on page 2. And all that budget amendment is doing is reducing our previous budget amendments for premium pay by the $430,000 that we didn't spend.
Anybody have any problem with that? Lisa?
I've got one, to me, a clarification. If you look down the bottom line, 28,924,822 is the estimate, but it's not including the 25, the first 25. And then you take off the 600 that you just said, that brings the total funding, the total request for project at $28,349,822, with an expectation of what you're saying is going. I'm trying to come up with, this is what that's kind of like, this is what you're approving, no more than these dollars, and only funding up to $28,201,294.
So you still say that the 28,201,294 is a good number? Is that
Yes.
correct?
As far as funding, but really you may or may not need all of what we are saying is the.
Understand. And on the,
I just want to make sure that what we're saying, that this is what the funding versus what we kind of think the project cost is going to be.
Whenever you send it to PBA. X amount of dollars for PBA.
Because I guess,
Yeah, I would, well, you take it
I guess
out.
what Mr. Klein was saying, that is Kittrell is not actually bid yet, so, and we've got an estimate. We're using Rock City's estimate in here, so there's still maybe some room for movement on that on project cost.
I guess, if you say Mr. Klein don't spend more than $28,200,000, then we got to whittle these numbers down somewhere.
Put both the contractors in the same room and you tell them what they got, they're going to get closer to it.
Okay, so then I'm good with.
We're going to discuss that in just a moment.
Then I'm good with saying, for all 4 projects, and then we'll wiggle the numbers around to make that work out.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson, to answer your question is $28,201,294 would be okay. With Mark's suggestion too, that you go ahead and agree to the transfers on the second page
right.
that you've got on your pads there. That 100,000 for the building purchase that we're going to have to move that, whether we do it for this or not, for the State Farm building, and also the 50,000 that we had in case we needed some kind of construction work there. So that plus the other amendment she's got down there would be part of your motion. That is your motion then. Mark, you got that? Do I hear a second? Second, from Commissioner Piercy. Are there any other questions for either Mr. Klein, Lisa, or the mayor?
I'll just clarify the funding of the buildings will be in the form of a budget amendment when we go to commission. You're approving that as a form of a budget amendment too.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next, and we may drag Mr. Klein back up here, is the item 10, funding for Klein Sweeney associate fees for public safety buildings.
And those numbers were already.
Yeah, they're already included in that number, so I don't know that that's necessary.
So we don't need to vote on this one then. Okay, so let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. What are these special inspections? I've heard the term a few times and I see it here.
No, we need to come up on a mic, please. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Dodd.
Okay, special inspections. The International Building Code requires that a third-party inspector be hired by the owner. Could have been done by the contractor to come out there and do compaction tests to verify that welds on steel are correctly. They're a next set of eyes to make sure the building gets built appropriately. It's required by code. You do it if you typically don't see that separated out, it's because the new code, 2018 IBC, it used to allow the contractor to do it, so his bid included it, and you wouldn't see it as separate, and now they see that as a conflict of interest because they're hiring the guy to watch their own work, so they want the owner to do that, to watch their work. Make sense?
Mr. Klein, I'm going to ask you to stay for a moment. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Well, we actually don't need to on this one, do we? So we do?
Which one? Which one?
The extra for the
The extra contractor?
contract.
Oh, on his? No, I think it would be included in these numbers. I mean, we included it.
By approving that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to skip
And
that
it's all part of it.
and then go to item 11. So everybody's straight here. And this is giving our public building authority the use of 2 contractors for public safety buildings. And I don't know, Mr. Klein, I think you were discussing that a moment ago. That's why I asked him to stick around.
And I guess for us, once the projects are turned over to the PBA, they're going to make those decisions. I mean, you've turned the project over. It seems to me that they will be the body that will be making the decision on how they.
But our discussion here, or our vote here tonight, we need a motion to send this to turn it over to the PBA.
They can go under contract.
Okay.
Yes.
Hoping that those agreements will be coming next.
It really should be the motion, not determining how many contractors they use, because I think that would be up to them, but to actually move this to the PBA and have a contract with the PBA for all these buildings, I think, is really the motion that needs to be made.
So I understand that the PBA needs to be able to go under contract.
Right. Right.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Klein or Lisa or Mark on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Allen?
I'm not clear. I thought we'd already turned these over to PBA because we'd had a conversation at one point about once we turn something over to PBA, can we pull it back? There was that conversation, and we said, no, they already have it. It's theirs. So I'm just not sure what we're voting on.
I don't think that there has been a formal vote to turn these projects over to the PBA. And typically, there's an agreement that comes with that, and that's what I'm hoping that's coming next week.
That's how I understand it. So I know they could go, I don't know if they can go under contract with Rock City yet unless this happens. But I know they can't do anything with American unless this happens, is what Nick and Brick Murphy are telling me. It's out of above my pay level.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion for us to turn this over to the Public Building Authority to do the construction.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, that concluded up to item 11. We're ready for the item 12, one-stop building additional funding. We'll call on our mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is a similar issue that we just discussed with our 4 buildings. We are at the point, we finally got numbers in from Mr. Klein with Rock City. They are the PBA awarded them the contract. We finally got some firmer numbers in, and that funding request is more than what was originally allocated. And so we're back tonight asking for that funding. Matter of fact, the public announcement, I guess, or groundbreaking has already been announced. We have Commissioner of Safety and others coming because they're going to be leasing one half of the building, and I think that's set for the 22nd, maybe? 23rd? 21st of this month.
So back when we were estimating the project was $5.3 million, but at the time, full commission, and they were coming up with the numbers. The number that came up with was $4,807,000, and we pulled back the $492,938. So, with the new PBA estimate for construction, architect, and engineering, the estimate for FF&E, and the required inspections, the total is now $6,363,060. So we need to come up with $1,555,998. So I am recommending that we reallocate the funds, the bond funds, back to the project of $492,938 from the proceeds from the sale of the jail site, and then there were some other miscellaneous little sales of property that totaled $399,750 that we received this year that has not been rebudgeted. I would recommend transferring that from the general fund to this project, and then a reduction of the development tax reserve of $663,310 to come up with the balance of the funding for the one-stop.
Okay, you've heard the request and suggestion of how we fund this. Do I hear any further discussion, questions, or if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, it appears that the $1,555,998 has been covered, so I make a motion we go ahead and approve this.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
And amend the budget in order to transfer these funds. Yes. That's what you were thinking. I just said it for you. Okay, I got it.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Another second for a second. If not, this will fail for lack of second. I have a second. Any other discussion on this? Mr. Stevens?
What was the initial cost for this project?
I believe it was $5,300,000. Is that correct, Lisa?
That was.
And we actually pulled.
That's what we went to the bond market back in, well, October of '20. That was our estimate for the total project back then, was $5.3 million.
Then we actually
We
pulled
reduced it,
$429,000.
yeah, almost close to $500,000. We just set it aside. If you look at your fund condition report, the cash, you'll see unallocated. We just kind of moved it and held it over to the side.
What was this, like 4 or 5 months ago when we voted on this, or 6 months ago?
I don't remember the exact date on that, Commissioner, but I do recall us reducing, that $429,000, almost $500,000 of this request
January
here.
2021.
We pulled that and thinking that we wouldn't need it, and we were mistaken, so.
I'm just afraid the same thing's going to happen with the public safety buildings, too.
I understand your concern, and I'm concerned about that myself. I know I'm trying to do a little construction myself, and when I started, plywood was $8 a sheet, and it went to $80 a sheet. So I can kind of see why we're running into some headaches here. But I have a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any other discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, committee. This looked like an easy agenda on the front end, but there's quite a bit there's a devil in the details, I guess. Okay, next up is a purchase of property from the Marshall Knob Baptist Church, item 13, and
Call Mr. Sandlin.
Commissioner Sallin, if you would. Commissioner, excuse me. That's from
Sorry.
habit.
Mr. Sandlin.
Mr. Sandlin.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor, Commissioners. Bringing to you here a piece of property that was brought to us by a real estate company. It's 3843 Shelbyville Highway. It's basically adjacent to our rock crusher and our convenience center on 231 South. They came with a contract. This is 1.78 acres. It comes with a building that was a church. They actually had a contract for $180,000 on this piece of property and brought it to Planning Commission for a daycare kind of thing, and it didn't go through. So it sat there a year vacant, or maybe even a little bit more. And so they called up and asked if we were interested in, since we had the rock crusher on the backside and the convenience center on the I guess the north side of this property. So they sent us a contract for $125,000 to purchase the property. We took that to property management, and property management advised me $80,000 up to $90,000. So the next day we offered an $80,000 offer. They sent it back and approved the offer. So here we are tonight to purchase that piece of property. And what would we do with that property would be expand the convenience center that's there at the rock crusher. And we have an issue there with traffic and stacking coming into that convenience center, and so we could broaden the horizon there and make it a lot safer. As far as the building, not for sure what we'll be doing with that, but it's 1.78 acres, and it's a good deal at that point.
Got a couple committee members on that committee too. Do y'all have any discussion on this particular project?
I think that they had proposed a certain amount, and we, I think, countered offer it with a smaller amount, and they accepted, as my understanding.
They accepted $80,000 offer, yes, sir. Only other expenses we would have would be the closing cost in our county attorney's office.
I think it said no more than $1,000 to close on our side, right?
Probably about $1,000. I think $450 or so on attorney's fees, and the rest, a little bit on closing.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion And a second. Thank you, Commissioner Dodd. Any other questions?
Funding. Funding for the
How you gonna
purchase
buy
of
it?
the equipment.
Steve, do you have a contract? Do you have a contract that you can email me? Okay.
So
Mr. Johnson?
The question from Mr. Dodd about the funding,
my recommendation would be to use the reserve for the development tax. Just to catch you up, before our activity tonight, the balance in that reserve is slightly a little over $4 million. We allocated $663,310 for One Stop, $81,000 for this. That brings us to $3,261,000.
So do you gentlemen want to add that to your motion to use the funding from?
that'd be
the
fine.
convenience?
That's not going to break us.
Any further discussion or questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. That brings us up to item 14, General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendments, and call on Doug. Okay. Welcome, neighbor.
Burlock's at the school board meeting, so we'll go over these amendments. If you have any questions, I'll answer them. First is a general purpose school fund amendment. It's for our STREAM mini camps. This amendment provides funding for a state and federally funded science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and math, that's the acronym STREAM, mini camps for K through 5 grade level children in December of 2021. This daily learning mini camp will be hosted at 26 RCS elementary schools for 4 hours daily, 7:30 to 11:30, from December 20 to 23rd, 2021. The mini learning camps will focus on creative problem solving for our students. At this is one of the top soft skills needed in life. Students can build this skill by analyzing situations in the STREAM learning topics and trying different methods to find a solution. Recommended motion is to approve the general purpose school fund amendment as presented for a total of $515,380 to budget for the STREAM mini learning camps. And the reason, this is mainly federal money, but the state put in some additional state funds, thus the need to put it in the general purpose school fund instead of have it pure in the federal projects fund, thus the need for the amendment. And that's the request.
Mr. Chairman, this was discussed at Health and Ed, passed unanimously. I'll make a motion we approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any other discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, I believe you got another one there, Doug.
Chairman P.,
Yes, Commissioner.
I've got a question for Mr. Brody before we leave that. Is there any way that any type of recycle learning could be incorporated into any of those items that is in that?
As far as for recycling on this mini camp right now, that's going to be coming up in the next few days. Is that your question, Ms. Piercy?
Is this coming up in the next few days?
Yes, sir.
What we just voted through?
Yes, sir. That'll be coming
I
up.
propose it's probably too late then if it's coming that fast.
But I like the way you think. I mean, we can, and I've talked with the mayor and Steve Sandlin about, some more recycling education. That has been a discussion for future for the children. We'll have a summer school again this next summer. And so, yeah, that sounds like a great idea to include that.
Thank you.
Especially with what we're facing as a county here soon.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Have we called roll on this one?
Yeah,
yet,
we got
Mark?
that. Yeah, we're ready for the next item on
All right,
education
so
capital
we're
projects.
ready for 15.
Fund 177, that's our Education Capital Projects Fund. We have an amendment here. This amendment provides funding to complete the Buchanan Sewer Connection Project for $150,000. that was delayed last fiscal year due to a permitting process. To budget for the Holloway HVAC project, $56,551, that was approved late last fiscal year. Completion of a window replacement at McFadden for $15,704, as well as additional funding to finish the renovations to the Buchanan, Stewartsboro, and Walter Hill Elementary School playgrounds, $107,000. Funding to complete these projects to be pulled from remaining funds from other projects as shown in the detailed budget amendment, with the exception of the $150,000 for the Buchanan sewer connection project that will come from fund balance as this project was budgeted last fiscal year, but not all of the project was bid and encumbered, once again, prior because of the permitting process prior to the fiscal year. And so basically, if we had been able to, get done with this project, or at least get contracts so we could encumber it, I wouldn't be asking for this amendment. The money was earmarked last year. I didn't want to put an encumbrance on something that I didn't have a number for with the contract, or so that folded back to fund balance. And of course, this request is to bring that money forward from fund balance that would have been expended last year to this year and budget for the remainder of the project.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any more questions for Doug? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Doug. Okay.
We want to appreciate the mayor, Rhonda Allen, Mr. Gurley, and all those that spoke, Wayne Blair, those that spoke at the charter school appeal the other day. Appreciate that. As a taxpayer, appreciate that. Once again, the board was not opposed to a charter school. The concept, it was, this one did not seem to bring anything as it was presented to this county. The cutoff for applications for charter schools for this coming calendar year has come and passed last week, and the same charter school has already put in an application, to reapply if they're denied by the state charter commission on their appeal, which the state charter commission said they would let us know, the county know, next month if they are going to grant the appeal of this school, or if not, they've already got their application in to reapply. We also have 2 additional charter school applications, one from Michigan and one from California, that we will be also having to review starting next month. So we definitely, one item that we noted when we came here the other day to the appeal was the executive director of the Charter Commission. She asked my counterpart over instruction, Dr. Sullivan, says, well, where's your charter review team? Your department. And of course, his reply was, you're looking at the 2 of them. And so her response was, you're going to need a lot of help. Every large county has people on staff to review and then do the administration for charter schools. So that'll be something in the future we'll be bringing to you guys for consideration. It's just part of the cost of school choice. Once again, not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's just it's going to be needed staffing over there.
And Mr. Chairman, just one more thing before Doug goes. They're still accepting written comments, correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
So I think it's until what, December 14th?
That is on the Tennessee Charter Commission's website. You can, a citizen can submit a written comment for or against the appeal of that charter school.
So if there's especially anybody on this committee that feels strongly about tax dollars being pulled out of our public school system and being put with a partner that we don't have a lot of confidence in. And that was one of the comments that we basically made to them was, if you approve this, you're kind of forcing us into a relationship with somebody that we still have questions about. So just like you said, this could be a solution. It could be part of the overall solution to overcrowding, but we just need to be super careful. We need to set a good precedence and set the bar high for any future applicants that come in. So I would encourage anybody that has concerns about this to submit those written comments.
And what's the deadline?
It was. Yes, ma'am.
What time?
14th.
14th?
Yes, I believe that was it. That it's
I thought it was the 7th, the deadlines, but if you could,
it's the.
Let us know.
I can forward. It's the 7th, I believe, was for the.
Application?
7th, because I reached out to Jamie Woodson
Yes, sir.
Haygood today, who she was in my same suite in War Memorial Building, and she's on that commission, and she assured me that she heard Rutherford County day before yesterday, and they would. Of course, she's new on the committee, and the commission's new. So this is a learning experience for all of them, but she only has the highest expectations for approving any request for a charter school. But she heard us, and I'll reinforce that with her today, that we have two good school systems, and we don't have that need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, next item up is 16, application for assistance to firefighter grants for fire rescue. Come on, Chief Farley.
I come here tonight to seek your approval to apply for a assistance to firefighters grant for $900,000 for a heavy rescue truck that will replace the one we've got. It's $900,000, and the county's match is 10%.
Okay, you've heard the request. Are any questions?
First of all, welcome back, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to approve this request.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second for application on this grant? And a second. Any other?
But I have a question.
Okay.
What is this truck used for?
What it will be used for, if we get it, it'll be used for as a hazmat response. It will be used as a rope rescue response. It will be used as a heavy rescue vehicle response, and it'll also have firefighting capabilities.
Will the truck it's going to replace be sold?
Well, the truck it's going to be replaced right now is looking at about 97,000 miles on it. It's one we bought in 2015. So it could be used as maybe a backup, but it depends on what kind of shape it's in by the time we get this truck in and get it outfitted.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say that it had firefighting abilities also, or it's got a pump? Okay.
If you don't use it for a backup, maybe some other fire department could use that and be willing to buy it.
Well, if we decide to sell it, of course, that go on Gov Deals, and that goes through the county selling process.
Chief, is this truck, would it kind of replace the kind of sort truck that you all volunteered to give us?
We bought a heavy rescue in 2015, and that truck now has got, well, since 2015, it's got 97,000 miles on it, so that truck will replace that truck.
Okay.
And if you remember, the first sort truck was the long, big white truck. This will allow us to carry all of our capabilities on special operations on this truck, as far as hazmat, vehicle rescue, high angle, low angle rescue, the stuff we use for cave, trench, a lot of that stuff. It would be on one truck. That way, if anything we come up on, we would have the capability to handle the situation.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Hearing no discussion, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is item 17, funding for window replacement and painting for the 20 North building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask Mr. Dodd to come up, and as he's coming up, let me introduce him to this committee. If you don't know Adam already, Adam Dodd, as you know, Mr. Mankin retired this past Friday, and we went through an extensive and exhaustive search for Mr. Mankin's replacement. We went as far away as California and Boston, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and we ended up all feeling comfortable. Everybody on the committee, even Mr. Mankin was on the selection committee as well. And if you go down to the museum, you can see the work. I watched Mr. Dodd, didn't know him that well, but watched him. He was kind of the lead on our museum downstairs. He's very meticulous with what he does. He's very well organized, and we're glad to have him now as our new Director of Facilities and Maintenance for the county, so we welcome him. And now we're letting him drink from the fire hose, so the first big one is to explain $500-something thousand for windows. Adam, so what you need to do is explain to the committee, this came through purchasing, members. Right. Came through purchasing. We actually put it out to bid for windows on the 20 North building. Why that was never put into the remodeling, I don't know, but after we got into the remodeling over there, people were going, hey, what are you going to do about these windows? Well, it was never put in the bid. Now, there was actually, over on the second floor, I remember seeing some paper towels stuck in a hole of where the wood had rotted, and there was wind blowing in. It was just, but I guess, how old is that building, Adam?
41 years.
41 years, so those windows have lasted. They're not thermopane. But as you see on your SharePoint, it was put out to bid. We didn't, purchasing did not receive a bid. We decided to put it out to bid again, and here we have before you, T&K Contractors did receive the one bid from purchasing, which includes window replacement with Pelo windows and painting around the trim. And we're looking at probably lead time, Adam?
20 weeks lead time from date of order.
Just can't get windows right now because of the shortage. I think even home builders are finding the same thing on replacing windows. So, members, that's what, it's an emergency purchase request that is before you tonight.
Flip to the next page will be my recommendation for funding. So the old Judicial building remodel, in the budgeted available, there's $198,553 in that project. So I'm saying, that's part of it. Community care, we advance fund monies into that project. That's the third one on down. So there is money that we can move forward because Christy Houston has already made one payment toward that project. We'll eventually, of that whole project, community care is going to pay half. Christy Houston's going to pay half. We just advance funded the money. So I'd recommend $237,000 of that money to move into this project. And then from the Gov 21 allocation, I'd recommend using $100,000 of that, and Archive from below is recommending using $50,000 from that project to come up with the $585,000 needed for the project, for the windows.
Okay, so you've heard the request and also a potential funding course. Do I hear a motion or further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve, and I'd have one question if we get a second.
Yes, sir. Second.
How many windows, Adam, about?
31, I think. There were 2 or 3 that were in question if we were going to replace. So I can't. That's a good estimate though.
31.
Yes.
know this has been on property management's agenda for a couple of years as we considered the remodel. I don't know where it got dropped. It kept coming up. That's $18,000 a window. It's pretty high. So just your thoughts on that, Adam, or did you get to look at it, or did Ben kind of review this?
He started the
Still a bit.
project. I have been over there. Is there?
You're comfortable with the unit price on the window? I know there's multiple floors.
The company's an extremely, it's a good built window. It comes with 10-year warranty. They're very energy efficient. I don't know, we're going back with an original, the same appearance, so it won't change the appearance of the building. It's a metal clad, it'll keep its original historic look.
I think you could have saved maybe $150,000. We actually looked at that. There could have been a savings. Some of the members of PBA threw that out, but that would be just inserting a window in with a square top. And if you look at the windows as built with that building, it has an eyebrow. And so it makes it more expensive to build that eyebrow onto it. Some suggested on PBA just put in a square and then put a piece of aluminum over it or something and paint the top, where the eyebrow brick is. And the PBA didn't, because of the historical, trying to keep the uniform look of the square. They felt it was best that we go back with what's in there.
My motion stands. I think we have to act now before it gets any worse. Those windows are bad.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner?
I have a question about the proposed funding. How much do we have left in that Gov 21 grant?
It's on the second page of that, yeah. It just bled over.
To the last page, there is, that would take the funding down to $1,671,000. As far as contracts to date is $1,453,000.
When is the deadline on spending
June
that?
30th.
So I guess my question is, would it be better to take the take the extra 50 from the archive, from the Gov 21, and save the archive project money for something else that's not restricted with the Gov grant money?
Okay.
Was Commissioner Dodd's motion to do it this way that's on the iPad?
It was, and I'm open to suggestions, Commissioner Stevens.
Personally, I think that's a good suggestion because we've got a deadline on spending these funds, and we can save that other money. If you want to modify your motion.
I would, my motion would need to move 50,000, remove the archives contribution and take that 50,000 from the Gov. 150 from the Gov.
Okay.
Second, okay with that? Commissioner Gooch, I believe you were second.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? And by the way, thank you, Commissioner Stevens. If no further discussion, call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Dodd. All right, next up is the item 18, adjustment to planning and engineering department fees. Welcome, Mr. Hughes. Seen a lot of you lately.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Committee members, before I start on my item, I just wanted to add something to the Marshall Knob item that we talked about earlier. Not only does it give us room to expand that convenience center, gives us a second entrance to allow traffic to get off of the shoulder of Shelbyville Highway. There's an existing septic system on the church. So I think that's one of the centers that they use a porta potty.
That's correct.
And so that'll give us the ability to put a little shop-in office and the employees to use that septic system. So Just saying that's a good purchase. But on your iPad tonight, under item 18 is an adjustment to the previously approved engineering department plan review and land disturbance fee worksheet. After we used this for a few weeks, we noticed that we had a typo on the land disturbance fee for the individual lots. We had $150. It is actually previously approved as $250. It's a $150 fee and $100 per acre. So that for the individual residential lots up to an acre needs to be changed to $250, which it has always been. And then we added some verbiage to help clarify, simplify the form. We wanted to say that individual lots over an acre of disturbance will be charged $250 plus $100 for each additional acre or portion thereof to the nearest tenth. And Chairman P had brought that up, and I'd added to the nearest tenth. That was our intent, but we went ahead and clarified that on this plan. And then also, we did not have a section for minor plats. And a minor plat where we're not building new roads, no new infrastructure, that, typically you see with new subdivisions, roads, water, sewer, storm. This is for when somebody has a piece of land, an old farm or something, they're carving it up into several lots, just fronting on an existing road. We didn't feel that it was proper that we charge them the infrastructure fee that's built into the next phase, section down called major plats or site plans that did have infrastructure. So we created a new section that had, typically it's based on the number of lots, and it would be the same $250 per lot on that. We had a recent subdivision come in that had 22 acres, but it was only going to be 6 lots, and we didn't feel like it was proper to charge them for all 22 acres. So we created this new category. And then also, at the recommendation of Commissioner Cush at the Planning and Public Works Committee, we kind of snuck in a little description of what the infrastructure would be. Roads, water, sewer, storm, et cetera, things like that you would see. So that was to help clarify that point. And then the final thing is in the major plats and plans. We had a calculation that was a little cumbersome, so we revised that to remove the subtraction of some acreage. So it's just a straight base fee plus $100 per acre. So we hope this will simplify this and clarify it and avoid some confusion that we encountered. But this is mainly from the staff seeing projects come in. It's not a complaint or anything from developers or engineers or anything like that. And then finally, we would like this to be effective after if y'all approve it, after the Board of Commissioners meeting, and it would become effective December 17th.
Okay, this was seen at Public Works. And
That's right, and I made the motion to approve it. My limited use of this as a developer, I felt like this did clarify the part that we see, so I make a motion to approve this.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? I think about half of us are on that committee, so we've seen this, but.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No other discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
All right, thank y'all.
And one question, it will be live on the website?
Yes, sir.
Because it's currently not. I couldn't make it work yesterday.
We will update that to have it, well, with the approval of the Board of Commissioners, we'll have it on the 17th. We'll have it up and running. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, here's the one everybody's been waiting on is 19, discussion of premium pay for individuals and requiring justification. Let's see. I guess, Mayor, we'll start with you.
Well, This is a discussion that actually came from the last full commission meeting, came from Public Safety Committee, because we were talking about the salary survey getting started. And there are actually 62 that are on the list that I think Mr. Sandlin's passing that. It's the same list that you currently have. It's just in a different format. There's 62 and that are on there. And if we were to, I think the overall sentiment from the commission was to pay all of those, but because of the rescue plan, because that's COVID related, says that we couldn't pay over, what was it, $80,000. If anybody made over that, it was based on 150%. If anybody made over 150% of whatever the average Department of Labor rate was, that they did not qualify. So where do you get the money to pay these 62? Because they were just as exposed as everyone else. And I think that is for discussion for you tonight. And out of the 62, I reached out to the sheriff and asked him, because he has a larger department that is affected with the number of lieutenants, captains, et cetera. He has 17 out of these 62, and there are others on this list that are public safety related positions as well. I asked the sheriff, since he still had several vacancies that he hasn't been able to fill, could he check his budget to see if he could step up and pay the difference and pay the $2,000 per individual for the premium pay. He checked into it, called me back the next day, and he's willing to make that offer to pay for all the departments out of his budget. Now, if that's discussion tonight that you need to have, if not willing to do it after tonight or after the discussion, but his commitment was to take care of everyone out of his budget.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm going to make a quick comment on this, just to let you know where I'm sitting on this issue. I wasn't at our public safety meeting, as I've already mentioned. However, it came back 100% of those guys wanted to pay these folks. And had I been there, it still would have been 100%, because I feel the same way. I will say this, I would like for this money to come out of the grant. If it's denied, then I think that we should take the sheriff up on his offer there and pull those funds and let our departments know that if we are denied the grants, that
You're not going to know. You're not going to know years
right.
from now.
Exactly, we won't know, but if it is denied, then we would be looking to make
Find
that
it
money
somewhere.
Find it out of their departments. So that's my feelings on it.
Well, and if it doesn't have it in the department, then the commission at 2 years from now, or whenever it may be, if we're audited, then the only choice you'd have would be to take it out of the general fund. So you could pay for it tonight on money that you know that you already have, or you can wait until we're audited, and then we're denied, and then we have to repay. Is that correct?
Yes, to be not allowable. It would be questionable cost or non-allowable. Allowable, thank you.
And I think there's some on that small list that I distributed to you. We would have to be able to justify the justification line item by line item of every person would be our justification as to why they should receive it. It's still up to the comptroller's office.
But if that is the intent, we have to send it to Treasury. We have to justify it to Treasury and put it on our website to the public of why that we are using the American Rescue money for this purpose.
And that has to be done now?
Yes, that piece has to be done.
I'd recommend we don't do that.
Now,
money available based on the offer from the sheriff. and
That's, now,
They can have their money before Christmas.
out of everything, that would be my recommendation, is to take it out of the general fund.
Well, you can-
You know, we
As
can-
well.
I mean, there's generally, in their salary lines that we could, well, in total, it came, I calculated like 190,000 benefits and all. So, I mean, they typically have that by the end of the year. So,
Sheriff, would you like to make a comment?
Of course, what we were looking at, and we were figuring around 2,857 to 2,900, not knowing, what the exact amount would be with benefits. We've come up with, of course, 10,000 would be that we've come up with 180,000 coming out of 3 different line items. I asked Chief Acton to look at this along with her personnel, and the reason we've got this money, of course, obviously we've had a great problem in filling our positions this year, and we've got quite a few of our detention officer positions still open. And because of that, we are actively interviewing right now, but carrying out the end of this year, we're not going to be able to fill all of our positions before the end of the year. So that's where those items would be coming from.
I'd like to
And
work out the budget.
I ask you for another 10, I think we'd be still within our range, because what we figured was 180,000, just roughly figuring.
Okay, folks, you've heard the discussion. Any other questions for any of these individuals before Mike runs off? If you got a question for him, we'll catch him.
I've got a question. Is it a situation where the controller or the treasury could accept some of these and reject some?
I mean, yes. I mean, we've not ever had these kind of funds. I'm just saying that if you pay, you have to justify, and you have to justify to the treasury and to the public. So
Our justification right here, kind of a brief one.
that is a justification. And I'm saying, I would rather not, when you read the regulations about what the money is for and why it is a cap of income, and it's because the idea is that those people at that above 78,000, the burden of having COVID is not as great as it is on somebody lesser paid. So that was when you read the information, that's kind of what you see. So it's not that these people worked hard because they work hard every day, and these people were out working in COVID. They're still working in COVID. That wasn't the impetus of the money. So to me, it's like the justification is not that they worked harder. How is it a financial burden to them, the higher income? So doing this, using the general fund, takes that question away.
Is that the general fund for everything here?
So that's what he's saying, that there should be enough savings in the sheriff's various line items because of vacancies that we can amend out of that into these lines, into the various departments' lines.
But would it just take care of the sheriff's department or all of these?
It would take care of all 62.
Okay.
Including the ambulance and the highway in that also? Okay.
There's 62 on this list. I haven't looked to see who all's on that list, but I believe everyone was paid.
Funds in
So
there.
ambulance may have some vacancies that might not take as much from you.
Their own, and I'm sure that the highway department could take care of their own.
Right. What I was going on was an assumption, other departments, because I don't know what their budget is, whether they would have funds or not. And like the mayor said, I've got, I think it's 17 on the list. And I did write, Preble put together some information for us, and we did write a justification for our people, which what we have said with our people, I think we could expand that to anybody in public safety, no matter what role they're in, whether it be fire, ambulance, or EMA. And I have furnished this letter to the mayor and to the budget chairman on justification of what our people did. And I mean, our people did actually, on people we had out for COVID, they interfaced with the public. They went on calls. They worked wrecks. So, in fact, I had 3 captains and lieutenant that were actually contracted COVID themselves because of, I'm not going to say because of what our interface, because I don't know where it came from, but good likelihood because of what we were requiring them to do. So they were working and doing the same things that what we were asking all our people to do during this time. And I think that goes for EMA and EMS and fire as well. But in looking at our budget and not knowing that what the other departments, whether they had the funding or not, and of course if they did, then that's great because it'll reduce the impact on my budget. The other thing that we looked at, very honestly, is that I'm doing a lot of overtime right now because of our shortages. And we wanted to make sure that if we come to you in April or May, to shift some of our salary into overtime to cover, to make sure we get the year out, that we would have enough funds to do that also, which we will, from what it looks like right now.
What we can do is look at every department and see if there is any vacancy position monies that we could move. Not just hit it all there.
Could that be done by year end? By year end?
By year end, are you?
Year end.
It's
Fiscal year end.
oh, fiscal year end. Oh yeah, I thought you were talking about in like a week or 2.
Well, okay.
try.
What about calendar year end?
No, fiscal year for sure. We'll
This
try
offer's
calendar
only
year.
good till June
'Cause I gotta
30,
get an
so
amendment. We have to have an amendment to do it, and that's it had to be done next week.
So you got 3 options, I believe, Mr. Chairman, before the committee tonight. You can take your chances and go ahead and pay it out of the COVID money. Take your chances, but we'd have to notify and have to send it. We'd have to advertise in the paper, which I don't recommend. Or you can take it all out of his budget and send him a check. Or you can take a little bit of time and take some out of his and go search every department and see who's got a vacancy and cobble that together and send out a check. So,
Or third, just amend this in, and any excess is going to roll to fund balance at the end of the year. That would be the quickest thing.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Commissioner Allen?
Option 3 was exactly the one I was sitting here thinking, which is, when we talked about this in all subsequent conversations that I had with other commissioners, everybody was of the mindset we didn't want to leave anybody behind. And so we agreed that night to pay everybody, and it was just a matter of what bucket does the money come out of. And that's all we're talking about now, where are the buckets, right? So we always have more than $190,000 left in general fund. And any department that has excess in their fund, it goes back to general fund at the end of the year. So it'll all settle up then. I think we're overcomplicating the conversation. I think we pay it out of general fund and move on.
Amend it and go on.
That's my motion. That's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Thank you. Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, committee. Okay, next up is item 20, opioid abatement agreement resolution. Going to cover this for us.
Anybody on steering?
I was on steering, and this came before us on Monday night. Basically, the lawsuit that we entered ourselves into several years ago to sue the pharmaceutical companies about the opioid epidemic in our county, some of those companies have agreed to settle the case with the state of Tennessee. And as part of that, so many counties and so much of the population has to sign on to this for it to work. And if it does, there's several different ways the money's going to be divided up. But long and short of the story was that it seems like we're going to end up getting about $500,000 a year after attorney's fees that can help us address some of the problems caused by opioids that have just gone out of control in our county. And so there are still other defendants in the lawsuit that are not settling, and we expect that maybe some of those would pay us some money too as a settlement, or we might get a judgment against them. But as to certain ones, they have agreed to settle with the state, but we have to do it their way. And, it seemed like a pretty good solution to me, and I want to be sure that the money that we get goes to help that crisis. That was one of the things we talked about, was making sure that it doesn't come into our general fund and get used for something else. But it was unanimous from steering to approve this recommendation for the settlement, and I'll make a motion that we forward it on to the full commission.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. And is there discussion on this? Because I have a question or two myself, but I want to hear from y'all first. Mr. Dodd.
Thank you. Did the component that it has to be used for opioid use, if that's part of your motion? Or
That's part of the settlement terms. Yeah, we have to use it for opioid abatement.
Yeah, unlike the tobacco settlement several years ago, it came into the state and was supposed to be distributed for smoking cessation, and very little ever got to that, and it disappeared in the state fund, and, so this is very specific. And it's over 18 years. We'll get about $500,000 for an 18-year period.
Anyone else on the committee's got a question? Commissioner Stevens, maybe you can answer this for me. I know when we originally voted to do this on our own, away from the state, and for obvious reasons, looking back at the tobacco settlement. So what was the convincing, or what convinced your committee to go this route? Is it because the other people would not settle with us?
Well, I wasn't involved with the settlement discussion, so I'm not exactly sure. With their strength in numbers, you're going to have more people that can work together to get a common outcome for this. When we got into this lawsuit, there was like 1 or 2 counties in the state that had filed lawsuits against these pharmaceutical companies, and I found out about that from doing some research, and I brought it to our commission, and we got into the lawsuit ourselves. And then somewhere after that, the state filed its own lawsuit. And everything has been rolled into one court in Ohio. All these cases have been kind of rolled into one big lawsuit there, and the defendants in these cases seem to be the same players. So multiple states and multiple counties, all these people are coming together with some of the big players so that they can settle these cases and just get it off their books altogether. I think some of them might even be in bankruptcy, and whatever funds the bankruptcy trustee or receiver collects might be used to pay this. It's a very complicated thing with class action lawsuits, but with the state and all these other counties going in together on a settlement, we're probably going to get something better than if we try to, forge on ourselves, and who knows what might happen. So,
Mayor.
Our attorneys representing Rutherford County, of course, this lawsuit was actually filed before I was elected to this office. So it's taken that long for this class action lawsuit to proceed, but our attorneys representing us had to actually sit down and negotiate with Herbert Slattery, our state attorney general, in order to get us, because us and like Commissioner Stevens said, there were a few independent counties or cities that filed our own lawsuits. But Herbert Slattery convinced our attorneys, and our attorneys figured as long as they got paid, and our position was, because we filed the suit, then we're going to get a little bit more in the distribution part than some other counties who did not, as far as our share. And so it was one of those things that, okay, it's better to get some than going all the way, because it would continue to eat away at what we're going to get it to 500,000 to continue on our own with attorney fees and trying to go and fight before a federal judge.
Okay.
Well, the attorney fees would be the same either way, because we agreed to pay them, I think it was 33% or 30% of whatever we collected. So whether that's today or 8 or 10 years from now, the attorney fee would be the same. But do we want to wait that long? And if we continue to forge this path ourselves, if we end up going to trial in 8 years, will they have any money left to give us if they've paid out settlements to everybody else and if they possibly file for bankruptcy? So if they're offering money to us, then it's, it's a substantial amount of money that I do believe we can use to help address some of the crisis here. It probably would not be wise to decline that and try to continue on our own path when we have a way to get, a substantial amount of money over 18 years. So my recommendation would be to accept this and send it on to the full commission.
But we still have our lawsuit is still pending. We have a separate lawsuit that's pending against one of the other pharmaceutical companies, and we probably won't get as much, but it will be paid out over a 9-year period from what they have told us. So it's about $2 million we'll end up getting over a 9-year period.
Okay. You've heard the discussion. I believe we have a motion and a second.
I've got one question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Gooch.
Okay, I'm not sure who I'm asking this question to. It may be Commissioner Stevens. But on page 5 of the document, C, it says, this settlement consisted of a joint settlement agreement with distributors McKesson, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, and their subsidiaries, also including manufacturer Johnson & Johnson. Is there a list of the subsidiaries?
I'm sorry?
Is there a list of the subsidiaries of AmerisourceBergen?
It's not in the resolution, but our attorneys have that entire list along with the state attorney general. So we've joined in with the inclusion.
So he has that list?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Pass.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up is to discuss our 2022-23 budget calendar and schedule. And I'm going to turn that over to Lisa.
Mark sent that out to y'all earlier, and I hope everybody had a sinking. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're ready to do this again. And thank you, Commissioner Stevens, pointing out that Memorial Day. So that's been changed. So I hope everybody had a chance to look and see if y'all are agreeable with the dates. Would have us beginning on January 12th, issuing the information to the departments to begin their journey, and finishing up on Monday, June 27th. It pretty much follows the same pattern that we did. In what year, Mark, was it? We patterned?
2011. This mirrors 2011.
Do we need to vote to accept this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Hearing no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next is August 22nd, 2022 meeting date. And I'm looking ahead here, and I'm thinking that's August 5th. Is that correct, Lisa?
August 4th, that's the election,
That's right, it's 4th.
the county election, so
We need to change that because there may be a few of us out running a poll ourselves. So does anybody from the committee have a suggestion? You want to go the Wednesday before? I think that's usually an open date. Tuesday's taken.
yes,
Lisa, you have a comment?
No, I was agreeing that Tuesday is what public
works.
Unless somebody else has a different suggestion, I'd say the Wednesday, the 3rd, August the 3rd. Entertain a motion for that. Yes, Wednesday, August the 3rd for our budget meeting for August.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So our meeting for August of 2022 will be August the 3rd. Okay, thank you. Next is item 23, Finance Director Secession Planning. I don't know whether we want to talk to Lisa or the mayor. Which would you?
Well, I will start. I'll start. And I've kind of told y'all, I don't believe this is a big surprise that I had planned to retire. I've kind of counted how many times I had set my retirement date, and I think I've come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times I have set my date. But I thought there's never a good time, and I am asking that I would like to retire, and I'm asking y'all to begin the plan to replace me. I am willing to be here. I don't have a date. I don't have a I'm out of here by. I just am encouraging you all to begin the process to find my replacement.
One thing I want to mention, and Lisa and I have discussed this, and of course the mayor, Lisa has graciously said that she would work with us till we find a replacement, and if need be, to work with that replacement in a role until they get their feet underneath them. I think it's very gracious of her to offer to do that, especially for somebody that's saying, you know, I could be at home not having these headaches. But anyway, she had assured me that she will stay with us until we've got a replacement and someone in place. She's always kept her word there. So anyway, I'll hold her to it. You know, of course, I told her, no, I'm not ready for you to retire yet, but that wasn't a good answer. But having said that, I want you guys to be thinking about we need to be doing some advertising, and assuming that you want to go as soon as you can.
Right.
So I would suggest that we go ahead and advertise as soon as we pass this and, you know, make a posting. Do we need to get a resolution to go to the full commission to do this?
I think this is notice for y'all to just get going on it. And the recommendation I had to the mayor is that I would post it until filled.
Okay, and we'll send that to Ms. Stevenson. Commissioner Allen.
The school board did a really good job in their transition when Jeff Sandvig left, because it's such a big and important job. I think we need to expect to amend the budget to budget for a new director and Lisa to carry us through probably the budget cycle, and then maybe even potentially that first audit. Because you want that person to have their legs under them really good by the time, you know, we hand it off to them. So I just want to kind of plant that seed that I think that's probably the way to go.
I concur. Any further discussion? I don't think we need any. We're going to go ahead and have our director post this and what the results of the advertisement will be. But rest assured, we've got somebody here to help guide us. She choked this out and didn't want to say it. She said, I really don't want to do another budget, but I will. So.
In my mind, I kind of had this, it's never, as I've taught, there's never a really good time, but I thought we just got to get rolling.
Okay.
I want to say this.
Oh, please.
It's just Randall Matlock was your first finance director, and he was here 19 years. Then Paul Long was here 7. I've been here 18 since this past May, so I told Randall I would never work 19 years when I started.
You got a total? Total with the state?
I've
30?
11 and a half with the state. And then 2 with the school. I've been, what, 35, 6 years total.
Is that part of the job requirement? We got to have hand motions when you talk.
Maybe,
Sonia, make a
maybe
note
pick
of that.
somebody who
so.
can talk without their hands.
One hand, not two.
Okay. Well, that concludes our business for tonight, unless there's other business that I'm not aware of. If now, speak or forever hold your peace. Not hearing anything, we are adjourned.